Hi, I'm Rick Bloodworth. This is the Common Sense Christian channel, and today I want to talk about a topic that, quite frankly, is not all that easy to discuss. It's about the bad things that happen to us in life, sometimes the unfair things that happen, sometimes the inexplicable things that happen. Sometimes we're accosted by evil people and we suffer as a result of that. Sometimes people make a mistake and they suffer as a result of the mistake or the sin in their life. And sometimes just with the happenstance of life, the circumstances of life, difficult things happen. Whatever it is, we've all probably been through something like that in our life, that when we think of bad things, that comes to mind. So the question that I want to begin with today is, what can you do when you're in a situation where it seems that no one can help? Well, this is the exact situation of three different individuals that we read about in the 5th chapter of Mark. And I'd like to call your attention to it. I heard this lesson by a gentleman, it's probably been close to 30 years ago, and he presented it in such a good way, in such a powerful way, that it's always stayed with me. And I want to go back to the lesson that he used, the text for that lesson, and hopefully it'll help you if you're going through difficult times, or if you know somebody who is at this present moment going through a difficult time. It's Mark chapter 5, and in Mark chapter 5, Jesus is in the heart of his ministry. He has been going from town to town. He has been healing the sick. He's been performing all sorts of miracles. And the thing I like about Jesus' miracles that I think are remarkable is they weren't grand, showy, flashy things. He could have done great fireworks display or something to that effect, caused lightning in the sky or something tremendous like that. But his miracles were very much focused upon helping people, and especially when it came to healing people. In Mark chapter 5, we find Jesus and his disciples coming to a place. We're told in chapter 5, verse 1, they crossed the lake to the region of the Gerasenes, and he met a man, two men actually, but we're going to look at the most prominent of these men, coming from the tombs. And this man had been besieged by a group of demons for quite some time. And people had tried to help him, they had tried to subdue him. Now, we don't know the reason that God permitted demons to have a season here on earth. It appears to be primarily around the advent of Christ, the time that he lived. Maybe it was so that Jesus could display his divine power even over the demons, even over Satan. But whatever it was, we have a man who is so inhabited by demons that he is called legions. Well, the man comes to Jesus, the demons inhabiting the man with him, and he falls before Jesus. And the demons within him beg him not to throw them into the abyss. The abyss apparently is a waiting area, an area of punishment until the time of the judgment. And so Jesus looks at this man and he has compassion upon him. And he heals him. He drives out those demons. The thing I was so impressed with the lesson I heard all these years ago was the point that the gentleman made. There were a lot of people who had tried to help this man. Certainly this man wanted the help himself desperately, but nobody could help. And when no one else could help, Jesus did. And he did the perfect and right thing to free the man from his bondage of those demons. Well, the next instant we find, almost immediately after that, we find Jesus walking along the way, and a synagogue ruler comes to him. And this synagogue ruler had a daughter at home. And She was suffering. As a matter of fact, we're told she was at the point of death, and he begged Jesus to come to his house and heal her. And Jesus started to go with him. And while he was going with him, just a huge crowd of people pressed about him. And don't you know that this was true of just about every time Jesus went somewhere after the miracles were displayed? Everybody who was desperate would want to come to Jesus because he could help. And so this crowd was pressing about Jesus, and one in that crowd was a woman who we are told had suffered from an issue of blood for 12 years. We're told that she had suffered at the hands of many doctors, spent great sum of money doing that. She was at her wit's end. And she thought, if I just touch the cloak of Jesus, I'll be healed. And she did, and she was. Well, Jesus felt the power go from him. And so he came to a halt. And he questioned the crowd who had touched him. He didn't do that because he was angry with them. He did that because when a miracle was done, God needed to be given the glory. The power that Jesus had needed to be seen, because then people could see, therefore, his authority and his teaching. And so the woman, when she saw she could not get away with it, she came trembling and fell at his feet, told what she had done. And Jesus told her, "Daughter, your faith has made you whole." Well, not long after this, the man, the synagogue ruler, was told by people from his house, messengers from his house, not to bother the master anymore, that his daughter was dead. And Jesus said, I believe one of the most important things that's ever been said. He said, "Be not afraid, just believe." He continued with the man to his house, and there was a big crowd outside the synagogue ruler's house. There were mourners and those who were there to comfort the mourners. And Jesus went inside past the crowds, and he raised this little girl from the dead. When no one else could help, Jesus could. When the woman who had been suffering for so many years came to Jesus after nobody else could help, Jesus did. When the man that was bound in chains and had broken free from them, that had roamed the tombs, sought help after nobody else could, Jesus could. This is something important for our lives, I believe, because we all experience things in this life that are difficult to go through. Some of you have experienced things that are far in excess of any pain or any grief that I have experienced, and so not having gone through these things, I wouldn't understand as fully as you do. But I will say the principle is just the same. My wife Carolyn and I have lost all four of our parents in recent years. Now, they were old and full of years. They had lived good lives, and their deaths were not particularly difficult. And yet the separation was still difficult. We still missed them. But we know that if they were as faithful as they appeared to be, and if we'll just be faithful, even though we've failed God and Christ so many times, that someday, because of God's grace and the sacrifice of Christ, we're going to be reunited with our parents again and all of our loved ones again someday. And that reunion will be one with the promise of never having to be separated again. Can you imagine the joy of that day? All we have to do is be not afraid, just believe. Part of that belief means that we've got to do our part. In Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, we are told that we were created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared beforehand for us to do. Once we have been saved by grace through faith and the other things that are involved with salvation, can we then be so ungrateful as not to do our part, not to do those works that God prepared for us to do? Well, I want to get back to this. There are other things that people go through. There are people who suffer tremendously through bad relationships, through loneliness, through different illnesses, through the loss of loved ones. I have good friends who have lost children. I can't imagine, just frankly, anything worse than that. How difficult that would be to go through. But again, when no one else can help, Jesus can. We just have to be not afraid and believe. Easy to say and hard to do, I realize, but that's what will help us get through these times. Carolyn and I, in our early marriage, Carolyn went through at least 3 miscarriages, perhaps a 4th, and it was a difficult time. One of the miscarriages, after it had occurred, she hemorrhaged so bad that she had to be rushed in just to stop the hemorrhaging. That was difficult, and yet at the same time, I've wondered many times since that moment, if we don't have children who we've yet to meet waiting for us in heaven. I don't pretend to know what God does with those who are yet born, but I will say that I'm confident it will be the right thing. And because of that, my idea of what the right thing allows me to look forward to meeting these unborn children someday in heaven for eternity, where they will be alive forever. I don't know, and I'm not trying to be fanciful, and I'm not trying to enter into areas in which we don't have instruction. I'm just saying that God always leaves hope, and that hope will result in joy. All we have to do is be not afraid and believe. And again, that can be a very difficult thing. I've seen and heard of people who were mad at God, who wondered what their faith in Christ was, what good that was doing them at all, since they had experienced bad things. It always reminds me of that little poem, Footprints in the Sand, where somebody sees their life in retrospect and sees that at times there's 2 sets of footprints, them walking side by side in a figurative manner with Jesus, but at other times there's just 1 set of footprints. And they ask about that and find that when they could not go on by themselves, that Jesus carried them. Again, I'm not trying to be fanciful here. I'm trying to make a point that Jesus really can help us through these difficult times. He is not present physically on earth anymore in bodily form to do instantaneous miracles. I realize that God will still act in prayer and do some things that are just absolutely astounding today. And we need to continue in faithful prayer. But like Christ in the Garden of Gethsemane, who sought to at least postpone his crucifixion, we need to pray for God's will, not our own, to be done. And sometimes God can see things that we cannot see. Sometimes he takes people to spare them, I believe, from the pain they would have otherwise gone through. And even though that might, for a season, involve greater pain for us, in the long run, if they were faithful, and certainly little children have nothing to worry about, but our older family and friends, if they're faithful, and if we'll be faithful, we'll be reunited again. And what a glorious day that will be. Meeting old family and new, old friends and new. I don't know what heaven's going to be like exactly. I do know that there are things prepared for us to do. I think we have some serious work yet to be done. I think that's when our real service will begin, but it'll be a service of joy. And I believe it'll be a service surrounded with wonderful loved ones who've gone on before us. When no one else can help, Jesus really can. All we have to do is be not afraid and believe. The question is, will we do that? Well, that's the message for today. I hope it's one that gives you some comfort and some hope. If you've been through different experiences that you'd like to share, feel free to do that in the comments. I'd be very interested to see how you were able to get through difficult times as well. But I appreciate your listening today very much. I hope that we'll see you again next time. God bless.